Hey guys, welcome back to our October's HubSpot User Group session. I'm Cassie and I'm with Jayden today, and we're both digital strategists at Neighborhood. Before we dive into today's topic, I just wanted to encourage you guys to make sure that you're signed up for next month's Hug as well, because we're going to be talking all about AI agents in HubSpot. Jayden, did you want to give us a quick preview on what that's going to be about?
Essentially, next Hug will be about AI agents in HubSpot. You might have seen them popping around all over the place, and we're going to talk through basically how they fit into HubSpot and how you can utilize them the best possible for your business.
I'm definitely looking forward to how I could better be using them for my clients, but yeah, super keen for that. So today, we're all talking about loop marketing, especially after the inbound session. This is the new framework, the new concept out there, and the big question that a lot of people have been having out there is, what is it, what does it mean, and how is it different to our previous marketing frameworks? And yeah, today we're going to chat about it and give you some tips on the best ways to get you started. So before loop marketing, we had inbound, which is basically your more traditional marketing funnel framework that HubSpot promoted, and that's all about attracting, engaging, and delighting your customers. And that's definitely still applicable to today's market, but Loop is basically re-looking at how we build out our marketing strategy to really keep up with today's users and how they engage with brands and businesses and the internet in general. So I would say when it comes to Loop, it's the big takeaway I took from it was especially with AI and how people are being referred to your business, they could be coming in at all different points of the journey, and you need to be making sure that your content and how you support them is relevant to where they're at, it's personalized, and you're not just taking everyone through that very top of funnel all the way down, because, I mean, it's just not personal, really.
Exactly.
But yeah, what's your thoughts on it?
I really like it. I wouldn't say it's completely shifted and changed from what I suppose we're doing here at Neighborhood. We're doing very similar things, but I think loop marketing essentially puts that framework, sort of sets it in place. And I suppose this is what everyone's kind of been doing for a little bit now, or at least should be doing. And now we've got that super simple framework to follow. So I don't know how it differs from a circle too much.
Yes, the flywheel. I think that was a few questions out there. Certainly, I mean, look, for me, it was a really good chance to kind of look at it from a fresh perspective. That flywheel makes sense in a lot of ways, but I think it does depersonalize to a degree. And I think the main difference between the infinity loop and the circle is that when people are coming in maybe at a low intent versus a more like warmer high intent, how making sure that they don't get the same messaging and the same emails, and just customizing that journey to, it's common sense. It's going to get better results for you, and it's going to be a better experience for the customer too. So I just know that if I'm a higher intent customer, I want to cut to the chase and look at the next things that's holding me back from making a decision, versus someone who's low intent, still sussing things out, might need a little bit more education and a bit more of a soft touch before they're ready to move on to that. Like, I mean, if I'm low intent, I don't want to be hard sold. Otherwise, I'm out. Yeah. So I think this is like a really good chance for businesses to definitely just reassess, what are they doing now? How are they catering to their customers at those different stages? And, how do we use AI to be smarter, be more agile and everything?
Yeah, definitely. And I suppose it always had that, in that traditional funnel, you go from A to B to C. So you sort of go through each direction all the way, and you kind of start at one side and you just go all the way through. Whereas loop, and I suppose the reason why they decided to go with a loop rather than just the traditional funnel, is you can start at any of those points, because not everyone, I suppose, comes in that same direction anymore, because I suppose there's a million different ways that someone can find your business these days, and that's, I suppose, what we'll talk about a little bit more in the next Hug. But people can come in through AI these days, so you can come in, and I suppose with, I think it's around 800 million weekly users on ChatGPT, people can come in through that without even having any contact with you whatsoever and converting. And it might not even be anything that you're doing directly on the side, like over here, but it might be some of the organic content that you're creating over here, similar to what we do at Neighborhood as well.
Yeah, because I mean, the traditional way would be you do a Google search and then you'd get search results. You click on the one that you think is the most relevant, read up and like clarify that it's definitely the place you want to talk to, and then once you're ready, you inquire, right? Whereas now it's like you ask a question and Google's already presenting you the answer. So that whole awareness and consideration stage has been like almost disrupted by AI. So it's like, how do you as a business adapt to that and make sure you're still delivering the right value at the right time?
Yeah, definitely. And I suppose always just making sure that, I suppose, with referrals coming from, say, ChatGPT, I think originally, traditionally, that would technically be either referral content, and like search engines would sort of register it as referral, or direct, which would kind of be completely away from where your marketing direction would be. Because you'd obviously be sort of trying to rank for organic or paid, but then you've got two other sources that are coming in now, completely different from what you would usually be doing.
And it's like, I mean, this could be a chat for the AI agent, hug or something, but I guess like the other thing to be considering is like, how are you adapting your content as well to make sure that it's being picked up by AI too? And that's all like AEO, is that right?
Correct,
yeah. But yeah, so speaking on that, it's like, the internet is changing, website traffic is changing. I think you've even personally experienced it and stuff. So AI coming in is just tanking people's traffic, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, you've got to change your strategy. And you know, I guess today we're going to talk about the loop marketing framework and how we can use the AI elements as well to, you know, make sure that we're also setting ourselves up for success to support the new ways that people are engaging.
Right? Definitely, yeah, and I suppose that's how the loop works. I think if you look at the loop now, there's a little sort of AI logo in between the loop, that where the crossover of the infinity is, to just really symbolize that AI is at the forefront these days. And I suppose if you're not learning a lot of these AI tools and using them to the best of your ability, you're probably going to be left behind. So I suppose we'll talk a little bit about that today as well.
Yeah, I think this will be the perfect chance to start experimenting on how you can use AI from the top of funnel. So okay, let's get into it. So loop marketing, we've got 4 steps. We've got express, tailor, amplify, and evolve. And that could be very general, and a lot of the things that I've been researching and just like, okay, it's common sense and stuff, but what does it really mean and how can we apply it differently? So first up is express. It's pretty much all about expressing who you are, what your message is for that person at that stage of the journey of where they're at. So just remember, people are coming in at different points of the journey. They're not all coming in at the very top where they still don't know who you are. They could be coming in when they've already made a decision and they want to inquire, they want to know what the next steps are and how are you adjusting that message to them. So I think this is a really good chance for us to really reassess who we are, what's important to somebody at that point. And it really comes back to clearly defining that ideal customer profile.
Yeah, definitely. I think, and I suppose HubSpot can help with that. There's different sections in there, built in with a lot of AI tools as well, because that is obviously their key focus, and I suppose the key focus of loop marketing as well. But you can use the ideal customer profile to build out your different customers and the ideal customers that you want to target with your loop marketing. And I suppose that starts that framework. I mean, it's the beginning of the framework if you want to look through it traditionally, but I think it's really important to always create your customer profile anyway. And also set up, I suppose, your brand voice, style guides, and suppose who you are as a brand and your values and everything like that. Because I suppose at the end of the day, if we're talking about loop and how it loops all the way around and how they're going to work, it kind of, you can jump in at any point, but at the same time, it will keep going around in a circle. So you're going to have to constantly be editing your ideal customer profile and be matching what your brand is and who you are, so that the rest of your marketing sort of follows as well. Because there's no point, I suppose, kind of doing all this organic content, creating content, pushing all this stuff out if you don't, I suppose, know your values or what you stand for as a company as well.
So I think that's a really good step, like to begin with, is just make sure you set up the brand kit and the AI like settings in your HubSpot profile, and make sure you like are identifying those ideal customer profiles, because that's going to also help AI give you even more valuable outputs and support you when you're creating and amplifying all this content to your customers. One thing I also have here that I drafted up for clients that are starting to implement loop marketing is basically a little it's a spreadsheet template. We pretty much identified their life cycle stages and what kind of state in the customer journey they are. So are they unengaged versus low intent, mid, high intent, or they're actively with sales with a quote in front of them? Because like us identifying what those triggers are, like from a behavior or what data we have on this customer, can one, help us find out, where they're at in the journey to better personalize. And then you move on to, okay, well, what's your message? What problem are you solving for this person at this state, at this point in the journey? And then it allows us to move over to the content and how do we tailor that message through our content to that person, and so on and so forth. So this has been a really good template for us to just start brainstorming and understanding each of our personas, what the life cycle stages mean, what part of the journey means what, and how do we tailor our message. And I guess this also kind of segments over to the next part too.
It does.
But before we get into that, anything else that any other tips that you would advise for people to do to make sure that they're setting up themselves for clear expressing of the message?
I think at the same time, I don't have any additional tips, but I think just more on the previous is, in HubSpot, the AI tools are only as good as the information you put in as well. So setting up that ICP or ideal customer profile and a lot of that brand voice and style is how AI is actually going to respond in a lot of circumstances. So setting that up, and I suppose dictates how AI can create content for you in HubSpot. So and I suppose as we go through these different sort of elements in Loop, you need to sort of put that sort of information in to get the best out of AI anyway. So doing content remix and a few other the AI tools in HubSpot need that information to give you the best outcome.
Yeah, so I think that step one, we've spoken a bit about it, but I think it's so important, and that's going to dictate the success of everything else, right? Definitely. So definitely make some time for that. The next one we've got up here is all about tailoring the approach. So now that you're clear on your message, your ideal customer profile, how are we customizing and personalizing our content in order to appeal to all those different people at those different stages? That's pretty much it, what it is, but there's a whole bunch of different tools and features you can use to help you tailor that content. Jayden, over to you.
So I suppose in HubSpot, HubSpot's always had it, but that personalisation tool. So when you're doing, landing pages, emails, anything that involves dynamic content, using smart content and personalisation is important. And I suppose when I say that, it goes further than just going, hey, and then the first name of the person you're sending an email to. That's obviously traditionally what was enough and what was classified as personalization previously. But obviously now that we're coming into, I suppose, a new era of marketing and how people find information, people want more personalized experiences. So they want more than just that first name piece at the start. They want to feel like the email that's coming to them or the page they're on knows something about them. So if you're sending that email, you can use smart content based on, I suppose, who your ideal customer is. So for example, in e-commerce, if you're sort of sending some products to someone in an email, you can sort of cater that to who you're sending to. So if you know that that person that you're sending an email to has made more purchases than the other person, you can change that content dynamically to make it more catered towards that person.
Some other ways I was thinking of it as well is if you've got gated content, maybe if there's certain topics or pain points or problems that these gated content is solving and stuff that can help you better profile and get a more educated guess on what's important to them and where are they at in terms of are they still researching and needing that education, or are they at the point where they're starting to narrow down their decisions. So I think that could also be a great way of being able to use that smart content to either recommend very similar content for them to peruse, or even like a call to action about that next steps. Like you could be booking a call with somebody when they're showing more medium to higher intent versus the low intent is kind of, hey, like softer approach, ask questions here, no obligations kind of stuff. I think that also comes down to like smart content only really works as well as your segmentation is.
Definitely. And I suppose, and segmentation, I suppose, generally was called lists up until recently and is now called segments.
Yes, that was an adjustment.
I think even still, lists lives in brackets, and some places around HubSpot, you might notice that it still says lists. So not to be confused, they are the same thing. But there are a lot of changes that are happening to segments for a lot of this loop marketing as well. And I suppose the next stage of marketing for HubSpot. So I think segments kind of works in tandem, and there's a lot of web visitor segments that are sort of being introduced as well. So you can use those segments, or lists as you want to call them, to be able to sort of use that dynamic content as well and segment customers dynamically depending on what segment they're a part of as well.
And how would we use AI at this point as well to like help the marketing teams like launch this new framework in the business?
I think it kind of, AI at this stage can help you sort of build these sort of assets, but I think a lot of this personalization would, if you want to use personalization, you can make AI create those messages for you. I think it'll be better if you do stage 1 first before using AI in stage 2, but also AI kind of feeds into stage 3, which is obviously the Amplify.
So moving on to Amplify. Now that we've got our message clear, now it's about how do we send it out to the world in the right ways? It's all about making sure that you're reaching all the different people in all the different places, and there's a bunch of tools in HubSpot that can help support you with that.
Definitely. I suppose the big one that's sort of been living there for a while but is probably underutilized is Content Remix. So I think that one obviously sits there. It's got AI sort of embedded all through it. You essentially start and then...
you can put a prompt. So you can put a prompt in it and everything, and then say what you're trying to do, and it can like spit out new blog ideas, research content. It can use existing stuff, or even like social posts, and like just drafting up a whole bunch of things for you, and then you can decide to tweak before scheduling. But so Content Remix, that'd be a good one. Just definitely to like just speed up and streamline all of this. But the other thing is Marketing Studio. I think this is one of the new things that came out in Inbound as well. And I don't know about you, but I pretty much summarize it as a digital whiteboard for your whole campaign. So you can pretty much put all your different assets and all the different steps that happen in a campaign, and then all even the like internal steps, the notes. So it's all in one place for you to really visualize and see what your campaign is doing, what it's supposed to, be converting at, and you can even plan and schedule and create tasks, and it's all in one home. And I think it's just it's like a souped up version of the previous campaign dash.
I know a lot of people use Milanote for marketing campaigns, and I suppose it completely almost sort of replaces Milanote. If you're using HubSpot already, you wouldn't need Milanote as much anymore because it's got obviously Marketing Studio, and it's obviously very similar to Miro, another obviously famous whiteboard platform and software. So I think probably if you have Marketing Professional, Marketing Studio at the moment, I believe, is still in beta, but it is completely replacing Campaigns, which is the traditional tool. So you will obviously, I wonder if for a period they'll put it in brackets as well, I'm not too sure.
What I found cool the other day is when I was like playing around with Marketing Studio, I gave it a prompt of what campaign I was trying to start, and like it gave me steps on all the brief that I needed to create for it, and then it started making suggestions and building a lot of the stuff for me using AI, and then it started drafting all these different assets for me. I was like, whoa, and that literally was seconds. So sure, I'm going to tweak it and like put some human into it as well, but I mean, it was a pretty good start. I wouldn't even know where to, it would have taken me so much longer to do that on my own.
And I suppose that's a big thing here is AI essentially allows you and helps you to scale your content creation. And I suppose the big thing on that and the why this section is popular, so obviously amplifying your reach is really important. You want to basically be on every platform or most platforms these days, because as we mentioned right at the beginning, there's no traditional funnel anymore. So people could come from like I said earlier, ChatGPT, and not even have a communicate with you at all, interact with anything of yours.
You got no insights as to how they came to be.
But then it's it's sort of making sure that you're like spreading as far across as you can, and improving your reach across all channels, because you don't know where they're going to come from.
So I guess lesson learned here, make sure you connect as many of your channels as possible into HubSpot. Use the AI to help, create the variance of all the messages across all the different platforms, and test out that marketing studio. But yeah, next bit is, now that you've got everything turned on and scheduled and stuff, it's all about evolving and being agile, making those adjustments in real time. And there's a few different things that you should be doing. I mean, every business should be assessing, looking at the reporting, analysing and improving as they go. But I think this is just to be implementing a more frequent process of evolving to keep up with the forever changing market, right?
It's just, I feel like it just has to be part of the loop. I feel like you can't just basically have the loop and not have a sort of section where you, I suppose, iterate, test, and I suppose change what you're doing, because not everything's going to work 100% of the time.
Well, exactly,
so if you're spreading across different channels, I don't think it's worth, I suppose, continuing to do the same thing constantly. If you notice that one platform's really popping up and it's doing really well, it makes sense to naturally be, I suppose, putting a few more resources into that sort of bag or that area to try and, I suppose, bring more people in and get more eyes on, I suppose, whatever you're selling or whatever product you are, or I suppose what business you are as well.
Yeah, and I think from the content perspective as well, going back to the spreadsheet with the different states of the journey, you should have clear entry triggers into that, like low intent versus medium and high intent, but then also clear exit triggers, like when do they move from mid to high? And then in that content nurture that you do at that point, if they didn't do that action you want to do to exit, how are we evolving our message and our nurture? And I think this is where the loop comes in a lot. You're re-looping them and redoing that whole communication in a slightly different way, just to see if there's, what else can you do to get them to convert and do that, ideal trigger. And I think that was a key, a big unlock for me of looking at it slightly different, of how can we do these smaller content loops and do alternates. If they don't do that ideal, journey, it's how can I continue to re-engage them to get them to do the thing I want them to do?
Yeah, definitely.
Because otherwise they just go cold and then see you later. And find someone else who happens to talk to them at the right time, huh? All right, so that's it for Loop today. So make sure that you are registered for the next hug, because Jayden and myself will be running you through all the AI agents in deep detail. So so this is where I'm going to really be leaning on Jayden on all of the extra technical stuff for AI, because there's some really cool things that you're doing that's just taking it to another level, and I need to tap into that too. So I think that's really going to speak well to the loop framework as well. Yeah, definitely. I think it's they all tie together. So I suppose if you're doing the loop, the more you do that loop, the more you want to implement AI into it. See you next time. Happy HubSpotting.